Hello and welcome to this overview of Roland's V600 UHD 4K HDR multi-format video switcher. For the next 20 minutes, we're going to go over the key features and functions of this model. There's a lot you can do with it, especially with the latest version 2.0 firmware update. Key features. So 4K scaling inputs and aux video out. So with these professional connectors, you have two 12G SDI connectors and four HDMI 2.0 connectors. And you have an aux video out you can assign and hardware reliability with mechanical push buttons, metal frame, and high quality components. The region of interest function, since its release, this allows you to turn a 4K camera into multiple HD shots. With Update 2.0 though, compatible Canon cameras can automatically follow the subject within the frame. And I'll have a video clip of that later so you can see it in action. As well as built-in PTZ control, you can control up to 6 PTZ cameras, including models from JVC, Panasonic, Sony with VISC over IP, and PTZ optics. For this demo, you're going to see the multi-viewer up here, and you're going to see program right here. And you're going to see the front and as well as the back. So let's talk about the I/O briefly. So you have working from right to left, you have the 4 HDMI inputs. You can also flex input 1 to be a RGB input. You have RS-232 and LAN control. So there's a web-based control interface for changing settings that you can access with your web browser. And then there's the SDI inputs. So input 5 and 6. And those can go all the way up to 12G, so that's 4K 5994. And then the SDI out and the HDMI outs, which you can independently downconvert to HD if needed. So you have a mix of 4K and HD outputs. The multi-viewer, the HDMI multi-viewer. And then also a 2-channel de-embedding and embedding of the audio. So you can bring in an external mixer. You can send out the embedded audio via the XLR outs. And lastly, that Tally/GPI connector. So with that, you can connect a Tally system or also create some custom switches to trigger commands using GPI. So just like any of our other V-Series video switchers, switching is pretty straightforward. You just select a shot in preview, and then you can use cut, auto, or the T-bar to perform a transition to go between your two shots. Choose the wipe pattern here. I have it on a mixed dissolve. And then over here, you can turn on the composition effects. So you have a composition layer, and then on top of that is the downstream keyer layer. So you can see for composition, I have a picture-in-picture here. And for DSK, I have a graphic on input 4, and I use the chroma keyer to remove it. You see here, if I just go straight to form program, it's bright green. But with the keyer effect applied, you get a nice clean overlay. I also have some still images on inputs 7 and 8. And I'm going to do an ROI demo in a bit to kind of rearrange those input sources as well. I'm going to spend a little more time on the controls just so we can get you familiar with the layout of this board. So Q is shot in by choosing a preset, which goes into preview, PVW, and then performing the transition. So that's basic operation. Up here you have an aux row. So this can be either a video output assigned to aux output, in which case you'd have to turn off picture-in-picture on the composition, and this will turn this into a full screen aux out. Otherwise, if you want to do 2 picture-in-pictures, or you want to do picture-in-picture and a full screen graphics layer, you have some flexibility with configuration of this. But if you do want 2 pips or 2 full screen graphics layers, then you will not be able to utilize the aux out. This is a multi-function kind of control area. So right now, this is green. So this will adjust the picture-in-picture window. So if I go back to like my wide shot here, and I'm going to bring up picture-in-picture, you can see it there. Now, if I wanted to adjust it, I have picture-in-picture 1 set up, and you can do 2 different presets. So if you want to create 2 different window configurations, you can have them saved, to the memory preset and call them up as needed. So this is green, so it's in window adjustment mode. So you can see right there, I'm moving the window in my preview there. And when I'm ready to take it to air, so maybe I wanted to move it all the way over to the right, let's say. So I do that. And when I'm ready, I press composition, and there's my picture in picture. This tells you it's locked off. So it's live, it's on air. In addition to that, I can also adjust the source within the picture in picture window. So I can move it around and resize it if I want to get in a little tighter for that pip. And then in the composition menu, there are some additional settings related to picture-in-picture setup. So, here I'm working with picture-in-picture preset 1. So I have menu controls for this as well. And I can also make additional adjustments to the border and the even the aspect ratio of the window itself. So maybe I want a 4:3 or 1:1 for a tighter picture-in-picture window. So it's fully resizable using the scaling on the V600. For the downstream keyer, that DSK where I have that song title there, you can see it up there on program right now. For that, I don't have it as a pip, because you'll see what happens is if I press the picture-in-picture button, it's locked off right now, so because it's on air. But if I were to put it in a pip window and then call it up, you can see it's a lot smaller and it has a border because it's in picture-in-picture mode. So I'm going to turn it off. I'm going to turn that pip preset off for the DSK section. Bring it back up. You can see it's on full screen. And from there, I went into the key 2 settings and notice that the key on button is lit as well. So the keyer is active. I have it set to remove green. And I have these menu controls here, but I also have some quick controls. So I can actually adjust the level to in this menu when it's not active, of course. So you can see if I turn it, I'm turning it down, turning it up. It's adjusting the level until I get the green removed nice and clean. So, for basically the workflow for graphics is, use the DSK, make sure a picture-in-picture preset is not enabled, that the key is on, and it's set to either Luma or Chroma color for removal, and then you're able to, bring in that clean graphic. So you can see there's the same picture-in-picture controls and key controls for both composition and DSK sections. Next, what I want to show you is region of interest. So I'm going to set up ROI. Now, with this, you press again, and now both of these control lights are magenta. So whatever the preset selection is, you can zoom in and position that window. So in what kind of situation do we want to do this? I'm going to go to input, to assign/scaling. And what I want to do is I want to copy input 1 to inputs 2 and 3. So just so you can see this a little closer here, I'm going to change the source from HDMI 2 to being shared with channel 1. And HDMI 3 will be shared with channel 1. So now all of a sudden I have 3 of the same shot. And with this, I'm going to use the ROI function to get some crop shots on 2 and 3. So what I'm going to do is this is selected in 2 is selected in preset. So whatever I do here will affect that shot on 2. So maybe I wanted to get in a little more on the singer and drummer. And then for 3, I'm going to zoom in, and I'm going to turn off my picture-in-picture here as well so I can kind of see a little better. And then maybe something like that. So there's my second shot. And then I'm going to get out of that just so I don't accidentally edit anything. So now, if I want to go from, wide to a close-up, I can just do that now. And I have my HD shot scaled back up to 4K for the output. So this is a creative way to take a single 1 or 2 4K cameras and create multiple HD shots. So you'd have the wide as a shot, and then you'd have your 1, 2, or 3 crop shots from that 4K source. So this is a great way to add shots to your production, and so maybe I store those to say preset 2, and I'm back on 1. So if I do this, I have my original configuration again, and I can go back to these shots here if I need to. So if you get a little creative with the memory banks, you can have some flexibility. So if I just keep this on one here, it's going to reconfigure those. So I want to make sure those aren't on program, otherwise you might see them transition on program like that. But here you can see I can go to like 5, and then I can go to 3. So it adds a lot of flexibility to your production with your camera sources. And next, what I want to show you is a video clip demoing auto ROI. So select Canon cameras, and there's a compatibility list on the website, will allow you to basically have the ROI window follow the subject. So as you can see here in this video, 2 people in front of the camera, and it's a 4K wide shot of the 2 of them. And as they move, their ROI windows will position, so pan, tilt, and zoom virtually within that frame, and basically create a moving HD shot automatically. What I want to show you next is a PTZ control. And then finally, we'll kind of go over some menu settings and the structure of the menu and where to find still images and all that. So PTZ control, let me just go back to my first preset here. So on input 6 here, I have a camera and not a lot of light. But what I'm going to do next is I'm going to go to 4 here. And then I'm also going to hold the DSK button. And now I can be in PTZ preset recall mode. So notice here I am moving a compatible PTZ camera around, and I can zoom in if I want to. If I want to recall a preset, I have a couple stored here. To store a preset, you have to go into the menu for the camera, and then you go down to remote control. And before you do any of this, you want to set up your network. So in this case, I have a static IP running through a network switch. So I have my laptop, my camera, and the V600. Now you don't need the laptop for the PTZ control, like you would with V60 HD running through the RCS software. You can just do a single camera straight to the V600, or multiple cameras through a switch to the V600. The reason I have the computer connected is you can see there's that remote control URL. So I can access the control software via that IP address and port. So just so you can quickly see what that interface looks like. And you have access to all the different menu settings and controls, and you can adjust and change your settings. So depending on what your workflow is, this might be a convenient way to kind of dial everything in on the 600. So this is available via your web browser with the latest update as well. Next, I'm going to show you that camera control. So we're talking about if you want to store a preset, you just go to store here and then choose the preset you want to save to. So I have presets for 1 and 2, so I'm going to save a third. And so that's complete. And so now I have preset 2, preset 3. And so you can cycle between the different preset recalls. And again, the way to establish that is you got to press and hold this DSK button until it turns light blue like this. So you can notice if it's a normal DSK mode, that is the source selection for the downstream key layer, which was input 4 for graphics. Like if I press the composition mode, I had my picture-in-picture window assigned to input 2. So this is kind of like just a shortcut to press and hold, and then you can recall the PTZ presets for your camera. And so finally, we're just going to go through some of the menu settings available on the V600 UHD. There are a lot. Some more were added with the most recent update. So first, what I want to show you is the still image and capture. So I had, outside of the factory defaults, I have some custom settings configured to, kind of quickly show you some points here. So you can load a still image, and if it has an asterisk, that means one is already loaded. So maybe I have, I have an empty space in 3. You can, load up to 8 images. And yeah, so maybe I, want this greeting logo screen here. So when I do that, the still image is loaded, and I have it coming in off of the USB memory here. So I have all the images loaded onto there. And so now it's in the system. I also have output capture, so I can save program as a still image as well. And what I actually did was I have the user setting. So user 1 is set to do output capture to still image number 8. And then user 2, I also have a new feature in 2.0 is the status bar, which I'll show you in just a moment. So basically, I'm going to take a still image of program by pressing this, and then it'll capture it to a still image. And then additionally, the other user button, I have the status here. So if I don't want to see this all the time, you can turn it on permanently if you want, or you can have it go on and off with the user button. There's some other things you can assign to the user buttons as well. I think that just output capture and the status bar are two pretty useful ones to have dialed in your settings. So you can get the input source resolution, what your output resolution is, which still images you're pulling from. So that can be helpful for production setup or troubleshooting. So for still image capture, I had a still image loaded into slot number 8. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my inputs, and I'm going to change still 1, which is crosspoint number 7. So you can see that was the logo that I imported via USB. And then there's the captured still that I had from pressing that user 1 button. So captured program and sent it straight to still image slot number 8. And if you press that user button again, it will just overwrite it until you change the target slot that it's being saved to. So I have a few still images loaded in there. And again, too, just to kind of review, is that for the ROI, you would set it up in this assign scaling section here. You just change the source to be shared with a channel, and you can kind of copy a particular source. Now, you also have, you can adjust the cross points as well. So you can do cross point assign. I have a guide on the knowledge base that kind of walks you through kind of a more complex setup for rearranging your windows with an ROI setup. If you're navigating it for the first time, it might be a little tricky to get the hang of like which source is in which window. So I highly recommend reviewing that guide, and it'll kind of walk you through some key points for, say setting up 2 4K cameras with ROI shots plus graphics. And then one other thing worth noting is that if you want to do aux output all the time and you don't want to do a picture-in-picture for the composition layer, you can change this to be fixed as aux, so you don't accidentally turn your aux output into a picture-in-picture window. That about wraps it up. If you have any additional questions, just contact us and Pro AV support. Happy to answer those questions for you. And thank you again. Take care.